Welcome everyone to the Elevate webinar series, a collaboration between AgeWell and their fellowship program, EPIC AT Health Research Training Platform, and also UHN Research IDEA. I am Patty Leek, and I am the UHN Research IDEA Educator. And today we are so fortunate to have Kung Jade and Sarah De Leo presenting on storytelling and friendships, telling tales about new and creative anti-colonial research methods.
Thanks for joining us, everyone. My name is Alison Schneider, and I'm the Education and Training Manager at AgeWell, Canada's Aging and Technology Network. We value the participation of each member of the community and endeavor to deliver an enjoyable and fulfilling experience at today's session. All participants are expected to conduct themselves with integrity, courtesy, and respect for others, and maintain the highest level of professionalism at this session. Disruptions that interfere with the event experience for other attendees are not permitted. So thank you in advance for helping to make this a welcoming event for everyone. This webinar is being recorded and will be available for replay on AgeWell's YouTube channel. There is closed captioning available for this event on the Zoom platform. So you can see the 2 C's or CC on your Zoom menu. If you like, you can click there to enable the closed captions. If you select this, you will see a white script on a black background with the captions. And please note that these are automatically generated, so there could be some inaccuracies. Okay, so I will pass things back to Patty to introduce our speakers.
Thank you, Allison. I would like to begin with a land acknowledgement, acknowledging that the Indigenous peoples, by acknowledging the Indigenous peoples of all of the lands that we are on today. And while we are meeting on a virtual platform, we invite you to take a moment with us to reflect and acknowledge the importance of the lands which we each call home. And we do this to reaffirm our commitment and responsibility in improving relationships among our nations and to improving our own understanding of Indigenous lands, peoples, knowledges, and cultures. For us in Toronto, including those of us at UHN and AgeWell, this land is the traditional territory of several Indigenous nations, including the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, the Chippewa, the Wendat, and the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. And this place is also now home to many Indigenous Inuit and Métis people from across Turtle Island. Please take a moment to reflect. I take great pleasure today in introducing Kung Jade, who has recently begun working in the field of medical education, is a Haida storyteller and the author of numerous children's books about Haida people, places, and cultures. We're so fortunate to have you here today. Thank you. And also Sarah De Leo, our Canada Research Chair in Humanities and Health Equities. And she is a poet and professor with the University of British Columbia's Northern Medical Program. Kung Jade and Sarah have planned a dynamic and interactive workshop, and they've asked us to have a piece of paper ready for this workshop if possible, and also scissors if you can. And with that, I would like to pass it back to our presenters. Thank you so much.
Oh, wow. Patty, thank you so much. Allison, will you do us a favor? Oh, amazing. And put up the slides. That's amazing and terrific. So, Kung Jade, do you mind if I just open with the 2 slides and
Please do.
Okay, all right, cool. So hi everybody. Just wanted to tell you that we are super excited to be here. We hope that this is actually a very pleasant and uplifting morning here on unceded stolen territories where I sit in Tsiltchan-speaking lands governed since time immemorial by the Okanagan, the Silks people. And we're just gonna run through a couple of slides. We can also make this slide deck available to you. So Patty and Allison, if you want it to circulate around, It is being recorded, so hopefully this process all goes fairly smoothly. But Kungjade and I have worked together for a number of years, and we've known each other as friends for... How long has it actually been, Kungjade? Do you know? Do you like 30 years?
At least 30 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we're both, 18 and 60-year-old goddesses in our souls. So our
Right.
skin quality. But we do hope that this is an enjoyable afternoon for you, because I think sometimes calls for equity, diversity, inclusion, cultural safety, cultural humility, anti-racism, anti-patriarchy, BIPOC, it can sometimes leave our hearts a little heavy, but Kungjade and I hope that we'll actually leave you all with quite light hearts today. So with that, the hour ahead of us, the next slide, Allison, if you don't mind, will unfold quite quickly. And thank you, Patty, for saying dynamically. This is how we hope to run this workshop. The next slide, slide 3, Allison, if you don't mind. On the off chance that you're asked to evaluate things and give feedback on how we're doing today, these are sort of the 6 outcomes, learning outcomes that we hope that you'll leave this workshop with. And again, more than anything else, we just really hope that you're going to be happy at the end of this hour that you spend with us. And I think as Kungjade will bring you, you will, I think, have some love in your heart. So next slide, if you don't mind, Allison. That's us. Both Kungjade and I write, tell stories, and are involved in trying to move people's hearts and minds, which I think is what will occur in the next minute or so as we transition into the stage being yours, my friend Kungjade. If you would take us to the next slide, Allison, and when Kungjade is ready, we'll move into a picture that I hope will move everybody's hearts. Kungjade, I think they're going to highlight you at this point, and perhaps a story to begin all beginnings.
Perfect. Thank you. How Haichika Asiem. So Kungjade Hinu Hakilka Dikyang Kungjade Koensna. So in both Squamish or Haida language and Squamish language, respectively, I introduced myself telling you that my name is Moon Woman. That's what Kungjade means. Both parts of my name are used at once. Together, it means Moon Woman. My cousin Crystal gave me this name. She's asked me to acknowledge her every time I use my name, so I acknowledge her every day. She gave me this name at the memorial potlatch, honoring my great uncle. He was hereditary chief of my clan. This happened in August 2008 in my village of Auclagay of Old Masset on the northern end of Haida Gwaii, where I was born and raised, where my parents still live. My sister and 100 cousins on the Haida side of my ancestry still live. I currently live in my southern territory because I am Squamish, and I'm Musqueam, I'm Tsleil-Waututh, and I'm part Hawaiian. My Hawaiian auntie gave me a Hawaiian name. She named me Hi'ilave. I'm named after a waterfall that's on the Big Island in Hawaii. I haven't been there yet, but now I want to go and check it out for myself. I wanted to introduce myself like this to you all so that you understand that I am who I say I am, because we know, sadly, there are a lot of people who are pretending to be Indigenous, but I am Indigenous. I was raised by 2 Indigenous parents. All my grandparents are Indigenous. My parents were raised by their residential school survivor parents. My mother attended 3 day schools, and my partner attended day school as well. I did not choose to be a storyteller. The stories chose me. I didn't want to do this. I was very, very ashamed of who I was when I started kindergarten until about grade 7, because the settler students in the armed forces school that I attended in my hometown of Tluga Outlas of New Masset got misinformation about us as Indigenous people. And these kids used to bully me in groups of 2 or 17. One day it was 100. And the settler teachers never stopped them because they believed those lies about us and believed we deserved that mistreatment. Well, I realized recently, though those children bullied me from kindergarten to grade 7, and then often the racism became more subtle after that, that what I did is I took those negative experiences and I've used them as fertilizer, and they've helped shape me to be who I am today. So I'm grateful for those experiences. And I want to tell you a story that starts a very long time ago. It goes like this. I will always translate. I am speaking in Hudkil, in Haida language. Our language is a linguistic isolate. It's not related to any language in the world. There are 20 fluent speakers left, approximately. I'm not one of them, but I'm doing my best.
Jade, should we move the slide forward so that you have a picture that takes everybody there?
Yes, please. This is Taustele. So Taustele is also known as Tohil. He is a dormant volcano. He is a he. And he has an older brother who lives in Juskatli with their mother. They had a disagreement, and Taustele moved and carved out Massa Inlet, and he stopped in certain places until he came to the place where he is today on the northeastern side of Haida Gwaii. It's a steep climb, but it's an easy climb to the top. And on a clear day, you can see the mountains of Alaska. It's my favorite place in the whole world. And there's a bit of a longer story to tell you about that. But the part you can't see is on the other side, on the right side of Taustele, there is a beach. It's a beautiful sandy beach. This is the place where the northern Haidas were born. This is the beach where Yosh Raven called to the first people to come out of the clamshell and stand on the side and on the sand, where he started to teach them how to be human beings. I recommend this place. This is a very beautiful place. So Awash, Agui, a long time ago, before our world and universe, when there was nothing, when there was no one except for darkness, there was one supernatural being flying in the darkness forever and ever and ever and ever. He has 3 names that we use for him today. He is known as Yosh, which means raven. He is also known as Hoya, which also means raven. And he's known as Ninkislas, he whose voice must be obeyed. Raven, our trickster, our creator, flew in this darkness forever and ever. He was looking for a place to land, but it didn't matter the direction he took as he flew for eons of ages. He never found that place. And the darkness grew thick and heavy, and somehow it slipped under his feathers and skin. It surrounded his kok, his heart. It weighed on his mind. It got into every part of his body. And at first it just moved him this way and that, but then it got into every part of his hue, and it started pulling him apart in every direction. It would destroy him, but he is the Yosh, the raven, and Unsi Dankang. He knows who he is, so he flapped his wings hard and fast and harder and faster, and the darkness came out of him and around him until it made a great ball. Our world. So beautiful. It took his breath away as he went, Onisqua. That is so beautiful. I must change myself into a very handsome 2-legged, into a human, into a man. In my new body, I'll go into this world. I'll fix it. I'll make it even better than it is. There were many things that needed fixing in this world, but Yosh promised, I'll fix all those things and more. So, Ange Ange, dear people, I could sit here all day on this video call and all night tonight and every day and every night until I grow older than my ancestor, Luke, who lived until he was 125 years old, telling you raven story after raven story after raven story. Even the youngest of you will grow old with me. Yes. But I will not get to tell all the raven stories that exist. This is just one. So Yosh created our world, and he put the land around the world where it needed to be. And then he put fresh water around the entire world. And then he took everything that swims and he put them into the salt water and into the fresh water. And then he took all the crawlers and put them on the earth, and he watched as they crawled around and around and up and down. And then he made the four-leggeds. Everything that walks on four legs, he put them on the earth, and he stood back and watched as they moved around the entire world where they wanted to be. And then he made the winged ones. He made them in all their colors, and he put them into the air, and they flew around him, and it made him so happy. He said, I am happy today. And then he made all of the nations of two-leggeds, of humans, and all the colors we're in right now. And he put everyone on the earth in the same place because he wanted everyone to live together. But those first humans, they unsi dangin. They thought they knew better. They divided themselves into the four main nations, and they moved to the four directions on their own. Yosh said, Hoot lagang, it's all right. He went into their villages and taught them how to be Ange Ange, how to be dear people, how to build their shelters, how to gather their food and prepare it, how to sing their songs, dance their dances, how to tell their stories, how to look after the very old and the very young. And when he was done in the rest of the world, he flew to Haida Gwaii, the land of the people. And he taught the 30,000 Haida ancestors the same things. And when he was done, he said, Flianu, I am really exhausted today. So he moved to a place where he could be alone. He built his own na'iwans, his own big house made of cedar. He gathered some cheen, some fish, and he prepared it. He ate some of it. He found fresh water, and he drank it. He thought he'd rest for a very long time, but Ganu, no, this was not meant to be. The next day he got up, he went into the forest, and he got more materials and built another na'iwans beside his house. And then he built another and another and another. And then he stopped and wondered, why am I building so many houses when I'm the only one here? I don't know. He built and he built and he built for 50 years. When he said, I'm finished. And he walked all the way back to his house where he ate the cheen and he drank the ankh. And then he asked himself a question, what am I feeling? I'm lonely. I'm lonely for the company of other humans. I don't know what I know. I'll have a laganat. I'll have a feast. I'll invite everyone to my feast. But then he stopped himself because he realized he didn't have enough food. So he set his fishing net and he fished. He got out his clam baskets, his seaweed baskets, his berry baskets, his hunting spear, and he hunted, he fished, he gathered food as days and weeks and months and years passed. Each day he gathered the food, he'd clean it all, he'd prepare it, he'd lay it in the sun, he hung it in the wind until it was dry, and then he put it away. But for that other food, he hung it up and he lit a fire under it until it was ready, and he put it away. And he jumped up and he said, Laganat kasket, I don't have any gifts for my guests. So he took his tools into the forest and he gathered chugid, cedar bark, and he made dadzane, hats. He made kigwe, baskets. He made capes and skirts and sleeping mats. He made drums. He made drumsticks. He made paddles and canoes and totem poles. He made regalia, traditional clothing. He made jewelry, and it took days, it took weeks, it took months, it took years of making gifts. But when he was making that final gift, he smiled to himself and nodded and said, yes, Laganak Asketwe Arawang, it is time for the feast. And he stood and he faced the east and he stomped his foot. He counted 4 times. Swanson, Stung, Schronisch, Stanson. And he looked to the eastern horizon. He saw coming from this direction all the red-skinned peoples of our world, all the indigenous speaking peoples of our world, speaking their languages, wearing their traditional clothing, traveling in their canoes, and he welcomed them to the territory. Dalangkusia Chuga, you were all welcome here. Dalangkenge Ash Ande Hangelga, it's good to see you all. Dalangkatsketla Aslan, you all look really good. Hashwishistalu Wagen Kawangusla, y'all come over here and then sit down. And then he turned to the south and he stomped his foot and he counted 4 times. And he looked to the southern horizon and he saw coming from this direction all the yellow-skinned peoples of our world, all the Asian-speaking peoples of our world, speaking their languages, wearing their traditional clothing, traveling in their canoes. And he welcomed them to the territory. Dalangkusia Chuga, Dalangkenge Ash Ande Hangelga, Dalangkatsketla Aslang, Hashwishistalu Wagen Kawangosla. And then he turned to the west and he stomped his foot and he counted 4 times again. Swanson, Stunstone, Stanson. And he looked to the western horizon and he saw coming from this direction all the black-skinned peoples of our world, all the African-speaking peoples of our world, speaking their languages, wearing their traditional clothing, traveling in their canoes, and he welcomed them to the territory. Dalangkusia Chuga, Dalangkenge Ash Ande Hangelga, Dalangkatsketla Aslang, Hashwishistalu Wagen Kawangosla. And then he turned to the north and he stomped his foot and counted 4 times again. Swanson, Stung, Schlonisch, Stanson. And he looked to the northern horizon and he saw coming from this direction all the white-skinned peoples of our world, all the European-speaking peoples of our world, speaking their languages, wearing their traditional clothing, traveling in their canoes, and he welcomed them to the territory. Dalangkusia Chuga, Dalangkenge Ash Ande Hangelga, Dalangkatsketla Aslang, Hashwishistalu Wagen Kawangosla. He introduced himself, and one by one, the groups of people introduced themselves, and they sang their songs, they danced their dances, they told their stories, and it truly was Laganak Asketwe Arawang. It was time for the feast, so Yash brought out Tawe Kwan, a whole lot of food for the feast, and they feasted as days and nights and weeks and months and years upon years passed around them. They continued to feast together. And when it was when it was time for them to leave, he gave each guest a gift or gifts and sent them back to the 4 directions from where they had come from. Anga anga. Dear people, Dalangwadlawan, each and every one of you, we have all been invited to Raven's Feast. You were invited the day you were born. Dalangwadlawan, each and every one of you, you were born with a gift or gifts. You're meant to learn what your gifts are and practice them with your whole self so you can be a shining light to those who don't yet know what their gifts are. The other part of the story is this. Dalangwadlawan, each and every one of you, you have tens of thousands of ancestors who love you always, who have always loved you and who will always love you. 7 generations ago, your ancestors wished for you. They sang for you. They manifested you. They're in the next world right now, and they're dancing for joy because you exist. Your ancestors lived through times of famine. They lived through times of war. They lived through times of disease. And they lived with pain and hardship and a whole lot of trauma. But they lived with a lot of strength and resiliency and love. And that's evident by your existence. You are not an accident. You are divine. You are beautiful and perfect as you are. You always have been. You always will be. So I'm giving you all homework right now. I expect you to do it. You won't have to hand it in. I might not get to check and see if you're doing it unless I see you again. And the world is very small, so I might. And you can tell me if you're still doing your homework. It's going to take your whole lives to do it. I want you to remember your tens of thousands of ancestors who love you always. And I want you to hug yourselves every day. And every day you're going to tell yourself, I love me. You're meant to love yourself. What you look like, the height that you're at and the age that you're at, those are things you can't change. Some things you can change. If you're mean, then you can be kind. If you don't share, then you can share. If you don't take turns, you can take turns. If you don't help, then you can help. But the biggest thing is you're going to hug yourselves every day for as long as you all live. And every day for as long as you live, you're going to say, I love me. This is what I do before I get out of bed. This is what I do before I go to sleep. And during the pandemic, I hugged myself many times a day. And I started speaking gently to myself. Because I'm my parents' eldest child, I had to set the example. I spoke to myself very harshly, but I'm trying to speak gently now. Because those bodies you're walking around in, those are your true homes. And Satlana, Creator, does not make junk, folks. It takes a long time to love oneself, and it's worth it. When you love yourself, no matter what, two miracles happen. The first miracle, you automatically make the world a better place. The second miracle, it's a true story, what I'm about to share with you all. Dalang Madawan, Dalang Dikoyadang, I love each and every one of you. Do I know you? Ganga. No, I do not. Does it matter? Ganga. It does not matter. You might not tell everyone that you love them, but you might. That's kind of a side effect. But it's really important because, as you know, our world needs more love. This is how we put more love into the world for as long as we all live. So when you love yourself for real, absolutely everything about yourself, I'm going to add to your homework. I want you to teach your families and friends the exact same thing. They have tens of thousands of ancestors who love them always, and they can hug themselves every day and say, I love me for as long as they live. I was not taught to love myself. My parents were not either, neither were my grandparents. But I'm breaking the cycle now, and I'm teaching as many people as I possibly can. And as people spread this message to their families and friends, I strongly feel that this is one of the strongest acts that we can do for decolonization. This is one of the strongest acts we can do to honor truth and reconciliation. Because love is the most powerful force in our universe. It's not hatred or anger, it's love. So, Dalanti Koyadang, I love you all. Daman al Hango, look after yourselves. And my favorite Haida word in the whole world is squintla. There's a little pinch at the end, squintla. It means kiss. Hawa, thank you. And in my other languages, Haichka, Osiam.
Kongjade, thank you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart and more. And I every time we have the gift of being together, Kongjade, I feel love. I feel and this is something that you've told me before. I feel incredibly emotional. I feel very close to crying. And I know you've always said that crying is a sign of strength. It means that I'm trying to connect my head with my heart. And
No,
trying to
no, it means you are connected between your heart and your head. Because those who can't cry have lost that connection, but all humans started out being connected in this way. And we need to regain that connection, because tears are a sign of strength, but they're also healing, just like laughter is healing. This is a form of self-care. We need to return to this and accept that expressing vulnerability is not a weakness, it's a strength.
It's a strength.
We can go out in the world and that junk gets inside here as we do our jobs and pay the bills and do all these have to do. How do we let go? Like, there's so much pain in the world right now. I have been crying a lot.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, I guess I'm helping myself to heal. But those of us who cry are so strong. We cry for those who can't, and we allow them to heal too. But I am believing that we're all going to return to this connection between our hearts and our heads, because it is strength and it's healing. Like laughter is healing, and often we do both. I know I do.
Yeah, I'm reminded every time I listen to you, Kongjade, of that need for love, of the need to connect the head and the heart, of the need to think not in hate. And I really want for all of us who are participating in this workshop today to know that it does matter now more than ever, in this time of great upheaval, in this time of great unknown. If you want to go to the next slide, Allison, that would be great. That there are these huge pressures in the world that can threaten the connection between head and heart, as if it needs to somehow be severed, because it's so powerful and it's so big that it can be hard to hold all at once. That we're being asked, especially in worlds of healthcare and clinical studies and health scholarship and activism and research, to take everything on and figure out solutions, come to some kind of understanding about some of the terror and trauma that we're existing in. I think especially about in British Columbia and nationally. Allison, if you just want to switch to the next slide, that there's these huge social contexts into which the stories that Kongjade is sharing are placed. There's these calls for all of us to consider refreshed approaches to what we're doing. There's calls for cultural competency, cultural humility, but there's also these huge recognitions about racism and bias and hatred in the world, and we're being asked to try to make sense of that in our lives. And I really hope that what we're here to offer you today is a sense that love and stories and friendship can in fact give hope and light in this time of in this time of some trauma and confusion. I know that many of us are clinicians and researchers and community members involved in the day-to-day work of cultural competency. I'll just remind us, interestingly, if we go to the next slide, what that thing is that's critical self-reflexivity, that's cultural humility. It's about thinking critically, and that's not bad. That's including thinking with love about ourselves, the homework that Kunjade has given us all, thinking with love about the world around us, thinking in a mindful way, but with our hearts full of love and a commitment to friendship. And I think there's a lot of evidence that says that this is very important, incredibly hard work. It's not easy, it's not simple, it's not flippant to actually orient to everything we do with friendship and love, with our head and our heart connected. This is a radical, revolutionary move with the potential to transform lives, the potential to transform scholarship, the potential to transform clinical practice, the potential, as Kunjade said, to be the most anti-colonial transformative revolutionaries that we can be is through stories of love. It's through listening to stories of others and bringing our own stories of love into this picture. Next slide quickly, Allison. We'll move through a couple of slides quite quickly. The Association of American Colleges of Medicine have just put out a national report saying that because of this time of trauma and burnout, that we really need humanities, we need stories, we need what is human to be integrated into all components of healthcare. Because if we just focus on biomedical scientific methods and methodologies, we won't be embodying and internalizing love. We won't be internalizing friendship and kindness, the ilk of which Kunjade has just so stunningly, beautifully offered. We'll just go through the next few slides quite quickly here, Allison. And again, we'll make this available to all of you. So just this thought about humanities and story and love and friendship being a very active force that we can all embrace and take with us into our scholarship. If we go to the next slide, quickly, Allison, we can bring it into the methods that we're using. We can bring it into our philosophical being. If we want to just skip to slide 16, Allison, the next one. This is a very good friend of mine, Lisa Boyven. For those of you who may have never heard of Lisa Boyven, she's actually at the U of T, and I know some of the organizers of this workshop work with Dr. Boyven very regularly. But one of the things, and I think it resonates with this story that Kunjade has offered us today, is we do all bring medicine, we all bring gifts, and those can be in the form of the most incredibly artful phenomena, the gifts that Raven gave when Raven sent everybody back to the four corners of the world. We all do bring these gifts. We bring this medicine. We have in our hearts the capacity to love and to bring love into this world. And that's a radical move in terms of our clinical practice, our medical practice, in terms of medical education, in terms of the scholarship and research and stories that we tell ourselves and that we tell each other. We really want at least 10 minutes to open it up, to stop spotlighting just the speakers and to bring the spotlight back onto you. So what I hope to do is offer you a final little gift that I hope all of you can bring into your hearts. And that is a pocket-sized book where we are going to do our homework and love each other. So you know what? I think we can take the slide deck down entirely. we can bring everybody back into the virtual room. You could even not necessarily spotlight us all, but we could hold up our pieces of paper so that in this next part, we just all do it together. Please feel free to turn your cameras on, and we're gonna have a little gift of love to each other and to ourselves. Please, if you have the piece of paper, yeah, amazing. Feel free to hold it up and I can talk people through it. We did this with heart surgeons once and they were completely baffled with this little exercise. So there's no right or wrong way to do it, folks. I know many of you will be type A, extrovert, perfection-seeking personalities, but please remember, we're here to love ourselves and love each other. So don't worry if the book is a bit of a mess at the end. It's all good. There's beauty in discomfort, folks. So first fold is going to be what we call a hamburger fold. That's the short end of the paper to the short end. A woman from Tennessee taught me to call that a hamburger fold. I'd never heard that before. I thought it was quite funny. Then, same woman from Tennessee taught me that it's going to be a hot dog fold, long end to long end. I know, Patty, it makes me giggle too. So we've got a hot dog fold and a hamburger fold so early in the morning here on Insulchin speaking Silks territory. We've got 4 equal quadrants, folks. We're now going to make 8 quadrants by folding the edges of the paper to the center. Edges of the paper to the center, so that you've got 8 equal folds. This next part is going to be slightly hard. Just remember, a room full of heart surgeons, almost en masse, had heart attacks, but they got through it partly by loving themselves. And I've done this, and you should see the looks of horror in people's eyes when they realize that they have to make a single cut. So what you want to do here, folks, is turn your 8 pages, 8 equal squares, into a little bird. It's kind of a transformative phenomena. I'll show you how it needs to look. You want to make the outer edges a flap. So the 2 outer edges, a flap. Yes, I see Allison has got it. So a little bit of a bird. My very, very brilliant PhD student from Nekasley, who is a duck health woman and is a phenomenal hunter in her community, says, now you have to break the spine of the bird. So you are going to take a pair of scissors or you are going to rip, it's okay, and you are going to cut the back of the bird down to the wing. So not all the way through, just half. So you've got a bit of a mouth, you've got a bit of a gait. You're just cutting the back of the bird. For those of us who are vegetarian or vegan or don't hunt, think about it as opening a new door. I'm just conjuring my friend Marian Erickson. Yeah, there you go. Now you're going to fold it all so that it's an X and fold it all over and you've got a little 8-page book. This, folks, is going to fill the next. Is there anybody who doesn't, who's not, who's Farah? I feel as though I'm just looking at you. Do you?
I have like some pages that look like they're stuck together.
Hey, Farah, remember, we are loving ourselves in all of our idiosyncratic ways. Whatever you have, this should just be a pocket size book. And we're going to take exactly 3 minutes so that we have 10 minutes at the end of this, where on the cover of the book or wherever in your beautiful origami, idiosyncratically you piece of paper you want to write, I want you to write about loving yourself. I want you to write about loving your research practice. I want you to write about loving a friend who's transformed you or is close to you. I want you in this little gift to yourself for 4 minutes, and I'm going to time us so that we're on time, to write about the gift of love to your scholarship practice, to your friendship, to combating patriarchy, white supremacy, sexism, all of the miserable things that we need to write about and fight back against every day. You're going to use love to do that. Open your books, write however you'd like. You've got 4 minutes, folks, and then we will wrap up, and we would love to talk to you. And Kongjade is a genius at answering questions and reminding you to love yourself. Feel free to turn your cameras off. We got 3 minutes, folks. Okay, folks, there's no pressure to turn your cameras back on or anything. But I think we have about 10 minutes left. You are welcome to share, to ask questions. I'll turn to Kongjade just in case, Kongjade, you have any final words. I know often you leave everybody when we're in person with a small gift as a reminder for homework. I hope that this little book also reminds people of the homework of loving each other every day. But feel free to share what you've written or ask questions. Kongjade, do you want to wrap up?
Well, the one thing that I can do, if it seems to fit here, is I can take my drum and I can actually sing you all a chant. This is the Raven Love Chant. It used to be a love chant. The chant connects the heart, the mind, the body, the spirit. And it was a love chant honoring the Nanalung Iskanchilung, the grandmothers and grandfathers. So I want to thank your tens of thousands of ancestors for surviving. I want to thank them for bringing you here today, because I really am grateful for you all. And I know that later on at the end of the day, well, just in case you didn't know, you make me happy just by being yourselves. And tonight, when I get ready for bed, I'll put on my PJs and I'll brush my teeth and I'll climb into bed. You'll make me happy again, because I'll remember this moment that we had. And so I want to thank your tens of thousands of ancestors by singing this chant. Eya, eya, la, aya, eya, la, 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 aya, eya, la. Eya, eya, la, aya, eya, la, 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 eya, eya, la, aya, eya, la. Eya, eya, la, aya, eya, la, eya, eya, la, aya, eya, la, eya, eya, la, aya, eya, la.
Thank you so
Guys.
much. I'm going to turn off the recording. I just want to let everybody know that, and we can open things up. Sarah, sorry to interrupt.
No, I just wanted to say, we hope we've moved your hearts and your minds through stories and music and commitments to friendship and love. And we hope that each of you take this into your work and your research and your practice and your way of being in the world. And we know that there are huge demands and confusing and big requests on transforming your very ways of thinking and being. And we believe that you and your tens of thousands of ancestors have put you here to do that work. And we are confident that you are going to produce kinder, more diverse, more inclusive, more anti-colonial research. We are confident that you are going to treat the people who you lay your hands on with more love, because you're going to love yourself a little more. And we know that sometimes this work feels hard, and there's all kinds of mandatory curriculums and articles to read and all of the rest of it. But would you please love yourself? Thank your ancestors. Kunjade, I am ever thankful, as always, for a friendship and love of you. So thank you. And I think we're really happy to have questions answered or open just for a conversation and a discussion.